So once it gets to May, June, July, August, the weather warms up. You see blooms of Karenia brevis. They produce the neurotoxin that gets in the oysters, and you shouldn't eat them. At least that's what they used to say. Here's the beautiful Noctiluca scintillans. In many parts of the tropical waters, for example, in Puerto Rico, you can go swimming in the bioluminescent bays. And one of the organisms that causes this bioluminescence in marine water is Noctiluca, Noctiluca scintillans. Noctiluca means nightlight. So when you disturb this water, they will produce this type of phosphorescence. It's bioluminescence, shining or scintillation. That's the beautiful. And then there's also some good guys within the Dinoflagellata, oddly enough. In this case, we've got a symbiotic dinoflagellate, which has a name that suggests that. It's Symbiodinium. This is a photosynthetic dinoflagellate, which lives within species of coral. Corals are animals, actually, as we will see when we get to the animals, and they will act as hosts to these dinoflagellates, which are Symbiodinium. Corals are typically found in the photic zone of marine habitats, or the zone where light can penetrate, so they can feed off of the photosynthetic product produced by these photosynthetic dinoflagellates, the Symbiodinium. And one of the hypotheses about coral bleaching, or the widespread death of corals, has to do with loss of the Symbiodinium. So without the Symbiodinium to photosynthesize and produce food for these corals, they die. So in exchange for producing photosynthetic product, sugars, fixed carbon, the corals produce carbon dioxide and shelter for these dinoflagellates. So this is the good guy. All right, our next phylum within the SER clade in the alveolata are the Apicomplexa. The Apicomplexa are so named because a certain type of cells within the Apicomplexa have a structure called an apical complex. So these cells have one end to them, which are specially adapted for burrowing into hosts. Many of these are spore-producing parasites. So not photosynthetic, but typically in an intimate association with some type of host or hosts. Usually there's more than one. They have flagellated microgametes. And then they also have, on the outside of them, a structure called a pellicle. And pellicle it means a little skin, or a little peel. Like the thing about the peel of a banana is on the outside. If it were very, very small, it'd be like a pellicle, a little peel. But the pellicle is comprised of 3 membranes. That's not true for all apicomplexans, or for all organisms that have a pellicle, but it is true for Apicomplexa. And they have fairly large and conspicuous alveoli if you're looking at them under a microscope. One of the most famous apicomplexans is in the genus Plasmodium. There are 4 different species, that's what SPP means, 4 different species of Plasmodium that cause the different kinds of malaria. Malaria is a tropical disease that is vectored or transmitted by the Anopheles mosquito. Anopheles is a genus of mosquitoes. We have Anopheles around here, but our Anopheles mosquitoes do not transmit Plasmodium. Plasmodium, this parasite, has a very complex life cycle. But we can say that they undergo zygotic meiosis, and that they're haploid dominant. And here's some of the stages in that life cycle. They've got the sporozoite, the merozoite, the trophozoite, the cells that give rise to the gametes, which are called the gametes. They've got anisogamy, so you've got small and big gametocytes, micro and macro, that produce small and large gametes, which fuse to form structures called oocysts. So that's a whole lot to digest in one go. Zoite means animal-like cell. Sporozoites, well, we'll see those in a minute. Merozoites, think about our monomers and our dimers and polymers from last semester when we're talking about our biological molecules. This mer means part. So this is a structure, a spore type that forms lots and lots of parts. Tropho, like we've talked about autotrophs and heterotrophs, that means feeding, and trophozoites are associated with the feeding stage of, in particular, Plasmodium. And when well fed, and only when well fed, do these cells go on to produce the cells that give rise to the gametes, the gametes. So often people will say humans are the host for Plasmodium, the malaria parasite, and that Anopheles is the secondary host. But we usually define the primary host as being the one in which the organism completes its life cycle by having sex. And in the case of Plasmodium, Anopheles is really the primary host. So the sex occurs within Anopheles, and we're the vector of the other life stages for them to reinfect the mosquitoes. So here we can see the life cycle of Plasmodium, different species of Plasmodium. And we're not going to go through this whole gory, detailed description, but I do want to draw your attention to certain points here. For example, the mosquito, and it's only the female mosquitoes that take a blood meal in order to feed their babies and lay lots of eggs. They need to eat blood. The males don't need to eat blood, so they don't bite humans. That's true of all mosquitoes. But it is the female mosquito who, when she bites a human, the first thing she does is she draws out a little bit of blood, and then she injects a little bit of her saliva, which contains an anesthetic, and that saliva that she injects contains sporozoites. So she blows a little saliva in before she starts withdrawing blood from for her blood meal. So it is the sporozoites that are injected into the bloodstream of the human. These sporozoites find their way to the liver. Here you can see the liver. And when the liver becomes infected, these cells now in the liver start to divide and divide and divide. And these are the merozoites that are produced within the liver. And the merozoites will burst open the liver cells, and these schizons, as they're called at this point, will go into the bloodstream. And they will look for red blood cells in which to feed. And they turn into trophozoites. And the trophozoites will feed, and when they are well fed, if they are not particularly well fed, they may turn into more schizons. But when they do get well fed, they may develop into gametocytes, or the gametes, which will go on to produce the gametocytes. And you have large and small gametocytes, which produce large and small gametes. But the gametes don't fuse until another mosquito comes along, and she takes her blood meal, and she's going to eat these gametocytes. And these gametocytes are going to fuse. And so we have fertilization occurring within the mosquito, forming what's called an oocyst, which is an egg-like structure, which when fully mature, that oocyst is going to undergo meiosis and produce more sporozoites. This happens in the body cavity of the mosquito, and the sporozoites have to then migrate to the salivary glands of the mosquito so that she can go on and bite another human and continue the life cycle. So besides having an apical complex, the life cycle of these alveolates is rather complex as well. So that's just one of the parasites found in the Apicomplexa, Plasmodium. But here's another. This is Toxoplasma Gondii. And Toxoplasma Gondii, you may have heard about if you've ever known someone who's been pregnant. Pregnant women, if you own a cat and you are pregnant or you think you might be pregnant, you'll be told that you should not be responsible for cleaning out the litter box of your cat. And it's not just because cat poop is gross, but there may be oocytes of this particular organism, this Toxoplasma Gondii. And from what I've read about Toxoplasma Gondii, it is present in an alarming number of people and is completely asymptomatic. So in the United States, about 25% of the population is infected with Toxoplasma Gondii. So a quarter of our class may have this living within them completely asymptomatically. And most people, because we have healthy immune systems, can live with this parasite and not even know it or be concerned about it. It becomes a concern because it can be transmitted to a fetus in utero. It's also a concern if you are immunocompromised, meaning something is wrong with your immune system. For example, if you are infected with the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. So here you can see these are the apical complexes on these tachyzoites, as they are called, for Toxoplasma Gondii. These help these cells to burrow into host cells so they can start or they can complete their life cycle.